what inspired you to create Getting in Bed with the Pizza Man?
Well, a number of things. I think the show is a product of an amalgamation of influences on my life over the years. I think a primary one that I like to talk about is when I was 20 and had the fortune of essentially crossing paths with Robert Redford, if you don't know, at my university. And through a very fortunate series of events, he became my mentor for about 6 or 7 years when I was quite young. And Bob actually we were sitting across from each other like this at a dinner, at my first dinner I had with him. And he was really the driving force encouraging me to write my own work.
Yeah.
Because I was young, I was 20, I was like this cute, blonde, charismatic girl, which often, if you have a knack of anything artistic, or especially for me, for performance, be an actor. And I was always interested in writing, even as a child. And he was really like the first major person in my life, obviously for someone so esteemed and brilliant. And he told me, I know you can act. I don't even need to see you act. You're a genuine person. What I want to hear is your voice. And so that really was the major first spark in my desire to make my own work. Then my program at school was also a heavy influence of new work. That was the focus of the program. And so there was like it was called the New Work Festival. And so it was so special that university would dump a ton of resources into it. So I was also part of so many new plays. And yeah, that was those were kind of the seeds. And then I've been writing behind the scenes really my whole life. I have stacks of journals just full of terrible writing. And then eventually, sometimes you hit on something. And over the years, of course, if you write every day, which I do, just for me, you get better. And so I wrote this story. It was very much inspired by a trip that I had taken to Denver, actually. 3 summers ago now. Was right during the pandemic, and 2021, the vaccines had just come out, so people were seeing travel again. And I think when I first started performing this play, I was a little bit more cheeky about whether it was true or not true. And I think now I'm sort of like later in the life cycle of the show. So it is very much based upon a series of events that happened that were quite strange. Yeah. And all of the end of the show with the pizza, all of that is happened. Yeah. And so when I started telling the story to friends, they were like, you should do something with this. This is really odd. And so, yeah, I've always, as a writer, been most inspired by telling my own stories. I'm not as much of a fantasy writer, or even I would say my preferred genre is memoir style fiction. Just because I would say the main reason for that is because, again, a primary influence for my work is sharing my uninhibited opinion and perspective from a female perspective.
Yes.
And within as much detail as possible. And so when I wrote this story, that's all I was trying to do. I wasn't really writing a comedy. I just wrote a story. And then when I read it to people for the first time in November 2021, people laughed the whole time. That was interesting.
Yeah.
So those are kind of some of the seeds of influence. And then I got really excited about solo shows about 3 or 4 years ago. Just as a form, I felt like it seemed scary to me, and I, as a human and as an artist, have always been interested in that, which kind of scared me.
Yes.
And so, yeah, I wrote this in a short story. I had a best friend read it, and she was like, "Katie, you've always wanted to do a one-woman show. I feel like this could work." And so that's kind of how it started.
I mean, one of the aspects that I found very impressive was, the physicality of your performance.
Thank you.
Do you have some kind of background in dance?
Yeah. And what's funny is, so obviously, as we saw, this show had no tech, no sounds, no lights. The full version of the show, which I think I had mentioned that night, has all of the bells and whistles.
Yes.
I have had this microphone version of the show built for a while just so we could easily travel the show. This was the first time, because I had received some feedback. Everybody was like, why don't you, because the physicality was not in this version of the show.
Right.
And I was like, well, if I'm coming to Fringe,
Yes.
it's one of the people, a lot of people say it's one of the most enjoyable parts of the show and like surprising.
Yeah.
So I built
Really
it.
interesting.
I built it into the show with, just those shitty theater chairs on the stage. Like that was a last minute plan. But yeah, I have a background in dance. I was a dancer well before I was an actor.
Yeah.
I started dancing at the age of 2, and I was primarily a dancer. I mean, I was in 4 to 5 hours of dance after school every day for 14 years. I was on dance team, and
You can tell.
thank you. It's kept up with me because I'm also, so I transitioned from dance. Well, I started acting. That kind of took my focus, and I've been doing yoga for I've been practicing it very dedicatedly for now, how long? 16 years. So since I quit dancing, I transitioned into yoga. And so, yeah, you can kind of see all of those influences in the show.
I do yoga myself.
Oh, nice.
I've done it for years. I wouldn't say I'm quite good at it, but I keep trying. So it keeps me fit.
Yeah.
It's very good.
It is good.
So, you talk about sort of personal relationships and sexual relationships.
Yeah.
And it kind of, I suppose there's a kind of a theme or identity there.
Mm-hmm.
There were a lot of young women in the audience when I went there. What do you hope that they draw from the stories?
I think for me, as a young woman, like I said in the show, I think kind of like I made my thesis statement is that as a woman, you're never taught that sexuality or sex is for you, especially in like a more Western conservative mindset, patriarchal society. And so I think that is...
Sorry, I think the charger just behind there is that's fine.
Yeah. Worries. There you go.
So thank you.
Yeah. But I think that but yeah, I think that's the main part. I think so many young women in this society, and there's so many Fringe shows that in their own ways actually talk about these themes, which I think only underscores the universal nature of this theme of the fact that obviously we're in a patriarchal society and that women are objects to be desired, and so if you're desired, then yes, okay, I show up in this thing and I ain't getting you what you want. But I think with my show, often I say this a lot when I talk to people about the show. I have a great friend who says the art that we write is the medicine that we need, and so for me, as you can see, like I was processing, and for years processing these grander themes and trying to flip the script of my own life and kind of take the reins of my experience, because really for so many years I was just kind of floating like a feather, just like the character in the show, and trying to figure out what sexuality and relationships meant to me. And it's funny, like I feel that this show really helped me process a lot of those things. And I really, since I wrote the show, my life has changed quite a bit. And now, I'm in a really happy relationship, and it's like, now it's interesting because like, I feel like the first iteration of this was, what are my physical needs? What do I really feel like physically? And now it's, what do I think emotionally? What do I think about marriage? What do I think about all of these expectations? What I am to be a woman more emotionally. So anyway, it's constant learning.
Do you journal?
Oh yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, every day pretty much.
I mean, my impression is that most people aren't too reflective about what's going on in their lives. They're so busy living life that they don't have time to pause and reflect on it.
Sure.
And I mean, it did come through very strongly that you had taken out time to sort of think about relationships.
Yeah.
That came across very strongly.
Almost too much time.
And, obviously what you've said there is a serious theme to it, but your show is also very, very entertaining.
Thank you.
And it's also, to a certain extent, what an old-fashioned word we would use is racy. I think that is the word I'd use.
Yeah.
How do you balance all that and get the balance right in that?
Well, I think a huge piece of finding that kind of walking that tightrope of, going deep into the core with it and also staying light is with my collaborator and director of the show, Matrix Kilgore. Matrix really helped shape the really love
second opinion.
Yes, it's the musicality of the show, and there are they're honestly my favorite moments, and it's when you people laugh when you totally flip what you were doing. That gets a laugh. So my favorite moments sometimes when I'm performing are when I'm hanging out in a more serious space with the audience, and I can feel they're really watching me, and I can see everybody's eyes, and then I cut it into a completely different tone, and then everybody laughs. That's really fun. But I think, I think that's, I think, there is that craft to it, but I think for me as an artist, that is my sweet spot. I'm not a surface level comedian. I'm not like, haha, jokes. I'm also not just sort of, I am funny, but I think I'm only funny because it's just kind of my observations and sort of perspective.
Yeah, it's observational humor.
Yes. Yeah, I think you said that in your interview, in your review, which I really appreciated, because that's what I
And it's
consider.
from your own experience.
Yeah.
And obviously if people, I suppose everyone's had certain experiences in their life that are similar, if not the same.
Yeah.
So,
Precisely.
people can relate to it as well.
Exactly.
And is this your first time in Edinburgh?
Yes.
Yeah. And how have you found it?
Oh my gosh, I absolutely love this festival.
Yeah.
I've been kind of saying I feel like I came on a blind date with Fringe. Like I've never been. I didn't know what to expect. I just booked things ahead of time and had people help me. Didn't even really do that much research because I didn't have time, because I've been touring the show in the States all year, and in order to even have the funds to come and do this, and there were so many times, because it's so expensive to come do this.
Yes, it's things.
And it continues to be more expensive, and little things come up, and there were a lot of times where I tried to talk myself out of doing this, because even before getting here, it's been a really challenging year, a really rewarding and successful year for me, but the most challenging alongside those wins and the recognition. It's been so hard to pull this stuff off independently. And so there were a lot of times where I wanted to bail on Fringe because I was tired.
Yes.
And because I'm also producing the show. I've had of course help, but I am the primary force that is driving this. It's not just creative. I'm producing.
You got it.
And yes, and I'm so glad that I didn't bail. And I can completely attribute the continuation of this to my loved ones and my team around me.
Yeah.
My publicist in Austin, my director, my boyfriend, my family, my best friend.
You've got them all working.
What'd you say?
You got them all working.
Yeah, well, they were all like, no, you have to go do this.
Yeah.
And my managers too. And so I'm in love with stuff. Me and I have 7 really close friends here, and also my boyfriend, and he and I just feel like this is one of the most special things we've ever done, and it's so inspiring and healing.
Do you think you'd come back next year?
I would absolutely
Yes.
consider doing this again. I think it's definitely in my wheelhouse. I can also see the benefit of continuing to come back.
Yeah.
I think now that I've done it once, I know what not to do.
Yes.
And what to do. I did not know what to do. I made some big mistakes in coming here, namely in where I put my money, and where to invest resources that I worked really hard to have, and I put them in some of not the best places. So, but yeah, regardless, I think like I came here and I've achieved what I set out to do, pretty much after the opening night. So I've just been having fun ever since.
And so, I mean, if you're a writer and a performer, you've got a lot of choices about what you might do next.
Yeah.
What are your plans going forward?
Yeah, so I think, I mean, it's sort of maybe cliche at this point, but a major reason I was even, like, Ed Fringe was even on my radar was because of Phoebe Waller-Bridge, Fleabag.
Yeah.
My show is much different than Fleabag. I mean, there are adjacent themes, but it's really like, I call it the Fleabag model of, like, coming and doing work here, getting some eyes on it, getting some recognition, and taking it to write a series.
Yeah.
And I've had a series concept that I've been ideating upon for several years, and I have a bunch of notes on my iPhone of like all of these different episode ideas. It's a comedy. It's not quite like, maybe I could have an episode that is my Pizza Man script, but it's more so the tone and the type of character.
And who would you do that with? Have you thought about that?
Yeah. So I'm deeply embedded in the Auckland film scene. I have been for, I guess, 14 years now. And I have such a heart for grassroots development. I think that's very much within the ethos of the community, largely, I would say, inspired by like Richard Linklater, if you're familiar with him.
Yes.
And all of the people around him. I kind of wrote, those people are kind of like my mentors. I kind of rose up in the scene, like Rick Linklater and some other filmmakers that are in his generation. They were kind of the people that grew me. And so I'm really interested in kind of carrying the torch of making within the community, but then also like bridging the community into higher earning tiers. And also more eyes, larger audiences. But Austin is very much an indie film scene.
Yes.
So yeah, I have like I really have fantasized about creating a project that activates and engages my community while also pulling in, like, the dream would be to have a bunch of people within my community cast or working on it, but then also getting key comedic,
providing work for the community and so on.
but then a few higher profile comedians who, and I've even been here at Fringe this week and watching people, and I've been like, oh, that would be a good person. Oh, that would be a good person to have like write with me or to have in the show. But I have these amazing managers now that I got through the show, and I feel like they came on to my team for one of the main reasons that we can develop this show and sell it, hopefully by next year.
And like the actual show, would you try Netflix?
Like a streaming service would be the goal. Yeah,
because they do a lot of comedy.
Yes, and I want this one. I obviously would love to be in it. I want it to be more so about like a community of friends, the actual show, so more than one storyline. I want it to be like a group of people. And
what's the kind of, how would you say the audience have reacted to everything?
You know, I always kind of, maybe this is a bit self-deprecating. I'm always like, no one's ever going to come out to me and tell me they don't like it.
I know people who would.
Oh, really? Okay. I mean, I will say, from my perspective, I've been observing my audiences, and everybody's really engaged and leading in. Nobody's grabbing for their phones. My boyfriend was standing outside of the theater. Like, he didn't go watch the show that night, and he was happy watching people come out, and he was like nervous because he was like, and he was said that they all were saying how phenomenal and amazing the show was. I will say, like, I've had various sizes of audiences. Like, I had 30 that opening night, which was pretty nice and not what I expected.
It's difficult at the Fringe because, there's over 3,000 shows in the brochure. And then you've got the going on at the same time. You've got book festival, the film festival.
Exactly.
And you've got the free festival.
Yeah.
So, you were in a lot of competition for an audience.
Yeah. And speaking of resources, that was one. I put my resources somewhere in hopes that it would drive traffic, and it wasn't the right place.
Well, nonetheless, a great show and a brilliant audience reaction. And thanks so much for this interview, Katie.